There has never been a more exciting time to be a woman. Today, I have the same right to education, voting, and work as any man, when less than 100 years ago this was impossible for women and girls. I couldn't vote, I couldn't go to uni, and work involved an apron more often than not. Jacinda Ardern, Malala, Greta Thunberg, women are in charge. Things are finally changing for us at an incredible pace, and as a woman, this is incredibly inspiring. We have redefined what it means to be a young woman, but at the same time, we also need to redefine what it is to be a young man growing up in a changing world. Growing up, I noticed how my younger brother struggled with societal expectations of what it is to be a man. I witnessed his frustration as he was told to suppress his emotions and to conform to stereotypes. For example, if he cried, he was weak, and his lack of interest in sport was considered abnormal. This ignited my passion for understanding the struggles faced by men and boys and the urgency to include them in the feminist movement. Now I'm going to conduct a thought experiment with you all. I want you all to think of a man that your brother, sons, friends, nephews may look up to. If you have someone in mind, is he a positive, progressive figure, or does he promote negative attitudes towards women, or an unobtainable view of masculinity? I think you may struggle to think of as many male figures for boys as you would if I asked you to think of positive female figures for girls. When I asked my 10-year-old sister this question, she responded with an extensive list, naming those such as Malala, Emma Watson, Greta Thunberg. Contrastingly, when I asked my 15-year-old brother the same question, he could not think of a single male figure that he genuinely considered to be a positive role model for himself. This highlighted the issue that for boys, unless they are interested in sport or other stereotypically male interests, there are not significant figures to look up to. In addition, there is a multitude of media depicting the joys of womanhood, but very little for boys. As Caitlin Moran says in her memoir, More Than a Woman, who talks about these problems and writes books about them, or sings joyous songs about being a young man trying to change men's lives? No one. Male gender stereotypes place immense pressure on them to embody traditional notions of strength, dominance, and emotional stoicism. Their expectations limit their ability to express emotional vulnerability, cultivate emotional intelligence, and embrace caregiving roles. The consequences include stifled personal growth, strained relationships, and increased mental health issues, leading to increased violence against women, eating disorders, and increased suicide rates. This is also perhaps why so many young men are turning to negative public figures, such as Andrew Tate, because he attracts the lost boys of our generation who don't know how to define themselves, exploiting their vulnerability. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. Admittedly, if I was in the audience, I would probably be thinking the same thing. We are so used to the phrase, "what about men?" being used as a counter-argument to the fight for women's rights and equity, and as a way to invalidate their experiences of women and almost villainize us. But if you take away the negative connotations of the term, there is clear there is an actual valid argument for it. As Laura Bates said in The Guardian, our boys deserve better than to be used as a shield for anti-feminist provocateurs, with more interest in stoking culture wars than actually helping them. By neglecting men, we are actually taking a backward step for women in modern-day feminism. For too long, Laura Bates says that we have been encouraged to view the struggles faced by men and boys as entirely distinct from those faced by girls and women. Now, this is in no way the fault of women. Caitlin Moran says that this is the result of the patriarchy, which has been ingrained into all facets of our society. For thousands of years, men have been the ones making all of the decisions, and society was built on this outdated system. For example, if you think about gender expectations in the Victorian era, women were to be seen and not heard, submissive, domestic, second-class citizens, and this is no longer the case. However, the standard for men and masculinity remains pretty much the same. They are to be dominant, strong, unemotional, and the list goes on. Caitlin Moran writes that the patriarchy and toxic masculinity are basically the same things. They are simply a quick way of referring to old, confining stereotypes that are hurting men just as much as they are hurting women. Now, this obviously can't be changed overnight, but we need to redefine this structure and work out how men and women can fit together equally, elevating each other and embracing our differences instead of using them against each other. So how do we achieve this? What is future feminism? Feminism, in its simplest terms, means all genders having equal rights and opportunities. I feel the term feminism has been misinterpreted and misunderstood, with many people not feeling comfortable to claim the term, as they believe that it oppresses men. It is hard, I concede, not to give in to this stereotype, as growing up we are compared to and pitted against boys all the time, affected just as much by negative language such as you run like a girl or you scream like a girl. And I know I'm not alone in insisting on trying to carry every single chair at once in the classroom when the teacher tried to ask for a strong boy to help her. It is easy to resent them and to want men to discover what it feels like to be treated as lesser, second-class citizens. But this isn't constructive and actually counteracts our efforts, as it breeds a generation of boys who don't understand why women are fighting for their voices to be heard, as they don't feel theirs are being listened to either. So, what is a man's place in 2023? And how do we enable men to break free from the narrow constraints of traditional gender roles? We can do this by understanding that masculinity is not a one-size-fits-all concept, but a spectrum that embraces a range of experiences, emotions, and interests. We can elevate a variety of different positive role models in society, such as stay-at-home fathers, nurses, carers, teachers, scientists, and academics. We can also focus on using constructive language from a young age, making sure school is an environment where gender roles are not promoted and children are encouraged to explore all interests and hobbies, and aren't confined to the stereotypes and stigma surrounding them. We can support and amplify diverse role models who challenge traditional notions of masculinity through media, entertainment, and literature. In addition to this, there can be safe spaces created for men and boys to share their experiences, establishing support groups and mentorship programs, encouraging open conversations about masculinity, mental health, and healthy relationships. Together, we can break free from outdated stereotypes and create a world where we coexist as equals regardless of gender. As Gary Barker, CEO of Equimundo, said, "Boys need feminism, and feminism needs boys on board." Thank you.